So yeah, I'll be talking about the past and present of XR development, mostly about the current though, but in order to get at the current, we have to talk about the past and the future. I'm going to try and avoid gritty details because people's eyes usually tend to glass over and they stop listening when I do that. But if you have any questions or you'd like me to get into any kind of technical detail, I will do so. Is that good? Cool. Thank you. My name's Reed. I am an XR AI ML developer. I have all of the acronyms. I currently work for CACI International. They're a very large conglomerate in this Northern Virginia, Southern Maryland area. I got my degree from George Mason. There's my LinkedIn right there. You can see it. This is my battle station. That is Mother Brain on the left. That's a 32 thread ripper with 64 gigs of RAM and a GTX 1080 running Ubuntu 22.04. There's the big one in the middle, that's flux capacitor. That is a Ryzen 5950X with 64 gigs of RAM and a 3080 RTX card. There's my laptop, this one in the middle of all that. There's a NVIDIA Jetson Nano on the very extreme right. That's my skill cloud. I wanted to look cool, so I made some up that are fake, and they are in there. I'll let you guys try and figure out which ones they are. Snuffleupagus is totally real. So anyway, I've been doing this sort of stuff since I was about 16 years old. I got a copy of Adobe Photoshop 5.5, R&Me, Métis, Yoho, and a hoe, and a bottle of rum, and went to work. Started making stuff in Photoshop when I was 16. That was my first version. Bottom right is Quark. That's a level editor for Quake from way back in the day. That was my first kind of like level editor thing I ever used. Unless you count the one from Duke Nukem 3D that I couldn't get to work. I taught myself C++ way back when I was 16, but I never did anything with it. I didn't have any inspiration for it, so I just kind of like learned it, and I was like, well, learned it. I learned it a little bit, and then I was kind of, that's cool, and then I never went back until I was like in my 30s. And then that's some really old version of Unity in the middle on the left. I've been using Unity 3D since 2009. I think that was about that's a picture of the version that I was using, but that's when I really got into to more modern game engines and development. Lately, so in the past year, I've had 4 jobs. I worked on the Army IBAS project. That's the guy with the combat helmet there. And then I left there and I went and worked for some crypto bros. And they hired me to make a VR game that was, the entire idea was that they had become millionaires on the Avalanche cryptocurrency, and they wanted to push another token, and they were going to use a game to do it, and they wanted me to build a game. And then the crypto market crashed, and they were like, hey bro, we can't pay you. And so I went and got another job. I worked at Diamond Age Technology, and we were building basically educational applications for government and industry, VR applications for Oculus Quest, specifically with Unity in that case. And I worked there for a few months, did some cool stuff, and then some guys who had worked on the Army project with me wanted me to come back, and now I'm at CACI again. This bottom left picture is where like my really first like real thing that anybody ever paid attention to. It was something I made in Second Life way back in the day. That's where I got my first start, like building 3D content was in Second Life. This thing was nominated for an Emmy, so I got an Emmy nomination for that thing. And here's my George Mason University degree, and there's my Emmy nomination right there. If you want to know more about IBAS, I suggest you Google it. I can't tell you anything. I'm under like extreme NDA, and Microsoft will sue me forever. Lately, I've been doing a lot of, like my job title says, simulation, prototyping, machine learning, computer vision, that sort of thing. But mostly, I just make spreadsheets. Unfortunately, I don't do a lot of real engineering lately. All I do is fill out, people ask me opinions about things, and then I fill out spreadsheets. So anyway, what is XR? To me, XR is a window into another world. Unity has a few definitions. sort of see it as a catch-all for virtual reality, mixed reality, and augmented reality. Virtual reality would be like what you know it to be in a virtual reality device. Augmented reality would be something like Pokemon Go, where you superimpose virtual content over the real world. And then mixed reality, according to Unity, is like you have your virtual world and you have your real world, and they start bouncing off each other and interacting with each other. And that's really where I put, I think, a lot of my most recent experience has been. Out of the three, though, I think virtual reality is more fun because I can, if I want gravity to go that way, I can do that in virtual reality. Whereas with mixed reality or augmented reality, reality has a say in where gravity goes, and it always goes down, unfortunately. So anyway, here's a history lesson about some things that had come before. This guy right here, that's an ancient Greek VR headset, according to a AI image generator called Midjourney, which came up with that. I thought that was pretty cool. I'm not going to talk about anything older than the Oculus DK2. That was my first headset, but I'm not going to talk about like 90s VR in the mall that you may have seen if you're as old as I am. That was terrible. This is actually Enterprise VR from 2012. Her name is Noni de la Pena. She's experiencing an application in that picture that, well, I built the environment for back in the day. And I just mentioned that because that was, before the Oculus devices came out, that was what you had. And it was, I think that system right there is like $200,000, something like that. So anyway, I'm not going to talk about that stuff either. Oh, wait, turn that off. Stop it. How do I can't make it stop. I want to play the video. Maybe do this? Uh-oh. I didn't do it. Hold on. Oh no. How do you turn the laser pen off? Oh my god. No, that's not it. Is this serious? Oh, I had to hit escape. Sorry. Oh no. PowerPoint is killing me. Slideshow from current slide. Okay, sorry about that. Is it going to play? The whole reason I stopped is so I could play this video. Oh wait. There we go. You know what you have to do? You have to do that. Okay, sorry. So anyway, yeah, this is my demo reel from way back in the day. In 2015, 2016, the consumer level devices came out, and I had made a switch. I decided to make a switch from 3D artist, animator to engineer. I was kind of tired of relying on programmers and getting them to do what I wanted them to do. So I was like, the hell with it, I'll do it myself. So I jumped into software development and started building virtual reality applications. At the same time, my wife and I, we had a kid, and I had the GI Bill from back in the day, and so I decided to go back to school for computer science. So I enrolled at George Mason University and started learning programming for real. So anyway, like I said, 2016, the introduction of consumer devices came out. I had the HTC Vive. The center one is the Oculus CV1, and the one on the right is the PSVR. I have zero experience with PSVR. I have worn the CV1 one time, and I owned the HTC Vive. After that, standalone VR devices came out, like the Quests, the Oculus Quest 1, 2, and Pro. I have a 1 and a 2. I had a Pro for about a month while I worked at my previous job, and we were on crunch, and my boss was like, don't even open it. You can't open it. We have to crunch. And I crunched and crunched and crunched, and then I quit, and then he made me send it back, and I never opened it once. Yeah, it was rough. So after that, more recently, we've had AR head-mounted displays. Like the pictured here are, the bottom right is the HoloLens 2, and then you have the Magic Leap 1 and 2 above that. These things map your environment. The best description I can give you is from the user perspective. What you can do is you can take like a holographic cup or a cat or whatever, and it can walk around on this table, and then you can walk across the room and turn around, and it will still be here on this table because it maps the room out, and it knows your surroundings, and it knows where you placed it in 3D space relative to your position, and that's what they do. They're really, really cool devices. They're also extraordinarily expensive, and I don't see, and I've used them quite a bit, I don't see many consumer, well, I see a lot of consumer potential, but there's a lot of infrastructure that is missing and a lot of software that is missing in order to make that stuff happen, and the price point has to come way down. So there's a few known issues about AR, XR, VR, and it's mainly that it'll make you throw up. Now, I saw that movie Gravity, where she's like spinning around there, and I knew how bad the motion sickness was, and I was kind of like, hey, I should make a game where you get spun around like that and like make them throw up. But it was probably a bad idea, and then I got a job and I never actually did it. But the main issue is that if your scene isn't rendered fast enough, your user might puke, and that's not really a kind of danger in a lot of other sectors of, like game development, so like pay attention to that. You really got to, yeah, you have to keep your FPS high. Another consideration to make is if you're trying to make money here, just go do something else. I do this because like I'm kind of like, like how some doctors don't really care about really helping people, they're just like really into kidneys. Like that's kind of how I am with this sort of stuff. Like I don't really care about making games so much as I like just think putting graphics on a screen like in your face and moving around, that's just fun to me. So that's why I do it. Now I have a job, like I pivoted into like a real career with it. But if you're trying to make $1 million in the XR field, it's going to be tough. So some considerations you need to have answers to all these questions. At least like if you're going to actually get into this, like you're going to want to have at least rough sketch answers for each one of these questions. Like AR or VR, obviously, PC standalone, software stack, multi-user, that's a big one. Like, do you need to talk to a server while you're running your application? Because if you do, you're going to have to think about that. You need to talk to the database, you need third-party libraries. Like if there's some kind of software that you want to use in your application, well, if you want to do that in Unity, that's going to suck. And it's a lot easier to bring a third party into Unreal Engine, for instance. In my experience, my opinion, blah, blah, blah. Do you need to talk to other online services like matchmaking or voice or something like that? And how are you going to distribute your application? So, software stacks to accomplish all of this. There's a few options. I'm going to talk about the main three. The bottom one, that's not weed, that's tobacco, that's legal. And I'm not telling you to do drugs. I'm telling you, you can roll your own solution, but I wouldn't recommend it ever. That's just so much work. Your solution, you're not going to be making a game or an application, then you're going to be making a game engine or some tool to make applications. You're not making an application. So your two real answers are Unity and Unreal. You can see them there. And there's a third player on the block right now called Omniverse, and I'll go into that a little bit later. So Unity and Unreal, the biggest games in town. I know them both. The art development side and the programming application interfaces for both of them. People argue a lot about which one's better than the other. Neither is. They're a mixed bag. It depends on the task at hand and how good what your skill set is, how good you like. If you want something to look amazing, you can get either Unity or Unreal to look amazing. It's just, is your artist good enough to make it look amazing? And as far as the programming goes, you can pretty much generally get either of them to do anything that a computer will do. It's just, how hard do you want to have to try to do that is the question. And depending on what you're trying to get the application to do, it depends on, it could be harder or easier between either of those packages. It's just, it's context sensitive. Here's my hot takes on Unity 3D. For AR, XR development, it is more well supported by Microsoft. It seems they've picked Unity 3D as their weapon of choice to build applications for their devices, the HoloLens 1 and 2, mainly the HoloLens 2 and whatever comes after that. The C# API is amazing. If you don't know anything about computer programming, and you want to learn how to program computers, go ahead and download Unity and learn how to program computers with that API. It's awesome. It's so easy to use. It's awesome. Their C++ plugin system is trash. It is garbage. Don't touch it ever. It is awful. What you will be doing is basically writing a compatibility layer between Unity 3D and whatever the third-party library you're trying to use is, and it's just terrible. That's just my opinion. They have a new-ish paradigm for programming. It's all data-driven, where they have these things called scriptable objects, and you load like all of your data, whether it's like configuration data or parameters for, blah, 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 anything. You load it into these things, and then you, whenever that data is updated in the scriptable object, it automatically propagates to anything that's referenced those variables. It's pretty cool, and it's very efficient. So it's kind of neat. I thought I'd mention it. It's something I worked with on my previous job. I'll say that collaboration and version control is difficult between Unity 3D and Unreal. That's the same across both. It just sucks. And especially when you're dealing, I don't know, Git has a Git LFS, large file system support, and that will work, but it's a challenge, and I could go into an entire presentation just about that. Okay, they're incentivized. Unity is incentivized not to update their platform. The terrain tools have been the same since 2009. I know, because I've been using it since 2009. And it's because if you want better terrain tools, you can get on their asset store and buy them. And then they take a piece. So they're incentivized not to update their platform. And that is in direct contrast with Epic and Unreal. So with Epic or with Unreal or Unity, you will need additional software in order to support XR interactions, be it VR or mixed reality or what have you. The two I have the most experience with are MRTK and Ultimate XR, UXR. They're pictured there, UXR's on top. To be honest, when I first started building VR stuff, I rolled my own solution to that. Like, I was coming up with how, if I wanted to grab this, I could get the position of my hand, but how do you pick it up? How do you know you're even within range? So that's the sort of stuff that these software solutions tackle for you, and I highly recommend you not do what I did and go get one of them and use them. So anyway, they provide interaction, movement, and animation capabilities. And animation, I mean like hand animation. Like, so if you look at, I have a game on SideQuest right now. And if you look at it, you just have spheres for hands because it's actually it's not trivial to get people's hand animation information and visualize that for them. And when I made my game, none of that really existed in Unreal Engine at the time. So, Ultimate XR, just FYI, if you're trying to build one of these things, they have an awesome system for hand grabbing and all that stuff, but that's about all it's good for. MRTK can do some of the same stuff, but it's mainly centered around pushing buttons and grabbing stuff and moving around the scene and that sort of thing. Oh, wait. Something that I'm reluctant to mention, but I think it's still true, because it was true like a month and a half ago, is if you use MRTK3 in your application you want to deploy to Oculus Quest, you won't be able to use the advanced rendering features from Oculus, like application space warp, because it isn't compatible with MRTK3, which uses a different plugin on the back end. It uses an OpenXR plugin from Microsoft, whereas in order to use the application space warp, you need the OVR plugin from Oculus. Just FYI. So just be aware of that. But it also might not be true anymore. They may have fixed that, so I don't know. Okay, so Unreal. I'll start off and say that Epic eats their own dog food. They make a game. It's called Fortnite. A lot of people play it. And they give you all the tools that they use to make that game. And you have them right there. Their C++ API, I mean, C++ is just a hard language to know and learn. It's very hard to certainly master. Somebody told me there was C++ master, I would like give them the side eye and be like, I don't believe you. Except outside of a few people, like that I knew at JMU. Anyway, so they have a structured class system for objects and vehicles and stuff like that. So like with Unity, you're just dumped into the game engine and you're like, make your game. And with Unreal, like I said, you have all the tools that they have in that they made Fortnite with. So if you want a character class, like a class that you can use and you give it a model, like a skeletized model that's animated and logic for running around and stuff like that, it's there. You don't have to build that. It's just there. You just use it. It's way more feature complete. If you want like a behavior tree, for example. If you want your characters to run around in a game and do stuff, you have to be able to program them and get them to do stuff in some way. And a behavior tree is a sort of data structure that you can use to do that. If you want one in Unity, you have to buy it on the asset store. If you want one in Unreal, you use the one that they used in Fortnite, right? So in that aspect, it is way more feature complete, but it's harder to use. Like, I basically went and got a computer science degree so I could use Unreal Engine. Okay, so it's that hard, or at least so I could know and understand the C++ API well enough to leverage it effectively. I can now, but it took a lot of work. I'll say that it has tighter integration with online services. That's just kind of how it currently plays out right now. So if you're trying to do matchmaking or voice or something like that, the providers for those sorts of services, their support for Unreal Engine will be pretty much better than it will be for Unity across the board. And also Lumen and Nanite, that's great, cool. Nobody's using it in an XR app, so it doesn't matter. All right, so like Unity, Unreal doesn't really come out of the box with a bunch of VR stuff. It comes out of the box with some, but you're gonna want this thing called the VR expansion plugin. You're not really, I mean, I wouldn't ever use Unreal for an AR app, and I'm not gonna cover it in this presentation, but I know for a fact that, for instance, MRTK exists for Unreal also. I've just never used it. For virtual reality development, in particular, the VR expansion plugin is there. It's really feature complete. It handles everything. It handles, the biggest problem it handles is multiplayer. It handles like the replicated synchronization between different game instances for you. And that is something you really don't want to have to program yourself. So yeah, it's there. It's free. It's open source. And the guy who makes it, he got one of the Epic grants. So they give him like hundreds of thousands of dollars to continue to do it. So he does. He's on Discord. You can talk to him, and he will tell you exactly how to, fix whatever it is that's broken. So the next option you have right now, as far as I can tell, is Omniverse. And if you want everybody on LinkedIn to like retweet you or whatever it is they do on LinkedIn, you should make your XR application in Omniverse, because people on LinkedIn are all about it right now. I went through a couple of jobs, and they were all asking me about Omniverse and its file format, couple of job interviews, sorry, where they were all asking me about, do you have any experience with USD and Omniverse? That was a common question. And Omniverse basically handles, it's NVIDIA, this is my hot take also. This is NVIDIA's dive into the software stack in order to, I don't know, solidify their position in the XR game industry, machine learning world, as if they aren't already solidified. But what it essentially allows you to do, the biggest thing it does, is that you can go into Unreal or Unity and build a scene or what have you, and then take all of that data and bring it into some other platform. Like, so you could potentially build something, if this all worked the way they want it to work, you could build something in Unity and then take it in Unreal and running it in Unreal, which is a crazy concept. The logic, I don't know how you transfer the logic. I mean, in my experience, if you want to program something in Unreal or Unity, typically the logic is identical or very close, but the way you express it is radically different. So I don't know how they're going to do all that, but their whole idea is to essentially turn Unity and Unreal into Flash Player, where you don't really use those software suites to build content, you just use it to play content. And they're trying to take that from them. I don't know how well it's going to work, but they'll try. USD is their file format. It's an open standard developed by Pixar, I think back in the day, but Pixar is actively working on it and stuff. It's just a universal file format for 3D interactive content, and technical details are that it's hierarchical based, if I said that right, and it doesn't use UUIDs. Everything is based on every asset's ID is its placement in that hierarchy. And like I said, it turns Unity and Unreal into Flash Player. I'm not sure if the guys at Epic and Unreal are really upset about that, seeing how they seem to be more open than Unity, but I know for a fact that they don't like it. This is just speaking from two people at Unity. Okay, so after you've picked your tool that you want to make your application with, I thought I'd say something about distribution and marketing. We tackled it in the previous panel, but I have a few 2 cents on it here as well. You have Steam, the Oculus Store, Epic Online Store, Microsoft Store, SideQuest, all that sort of thing. I personally have a game on SideQuest just because there's the lowest barrier to entry there. It's super easy to get on. You just basically put it up there and then start giving people the link. The Microsoft Store, I have zero experience with, but I know if you do make a HoloLens app, if you go out and buy one for the $3,500 or whatever that costs, and you want to make an app and you want to sell it to all 12 people who own one, you'll have to get it on the Microsoft Store, and that's going to be tough. The same thing goes for the Oculus Store, and Steam has a little bit less barrier to entry. Oculus Store is basically impossible. They give you a phone book of things your application has to do in order to get it up on the store, and it's just an excuse to say no. But they do have their App Lab, which is sort of like if you're a developer, you can put it up there and other developers can go look at your stuff. But it's not really, it's not comparable. It's pretty difficult. So this goes back to like what I was saying about if you're trying to make a lot of money here, maybe you will. I don't know. Good luck. And this is going to be like the most important thing right here. Like, as an engineer and an artist, I really, like I said, I just like pushing polygons around. I really, really like that. It's a lot of fun. But if you want to make something that's useful to people or something that people enjoy, you really have to put it in the hands of people who have no idea how to use it and just see where they fail. And then talk to them afterwards. I'm not particularly good at getting people to really tell me exactly what was wrong with the application. They can give me some answers, but it won't really be the answer that I'm looking for. And so if you're an indie developer, you're just going to have to get good at that yourself, but if you work for a big company, they probably have people who do this. I used to think UX was a joke. I thought the people who did it were like self-important and like just trying to get in on the game, but that is user experience. If you want to make a useful application, is probably the most important kind of aspect that you need to focus on. The engineering will come secondary to that. You can have an application you think is amazing, it does amazing things, and you think it's awesome, and you go put it in the hands of the users, and you will find out that it sucks. And then you have to listen to them exactly why it sucks, and then go and try and fix it. And the only way you're going to do that is by putting it in their hands and talking to them extensively afterwards. So think about that. It's not a joke. It's really something you need to think about and plan accordingly for. All right, so I just wanted to leave with 2 notes that nobody knows what's going on in this field, and that's why I like it so much. It's like I said on the previous panel, you can't Google the error code, or like if you want to do something new, you can't just like Google. Like if you want to take, especially in the AR field, because you're integrating it. In my experience, you integrate it with other systems. If you want to take it and go integrate it with some system that's never done that before, you can't just like ask somebody how to do it. You have to figure it out on your own. And nobody at all knows the answer. So just figure it out and trust yourself. Also, half the battle is just showing up. So if you want to be a VR developer, just start making VR stuff. It's going to suck. Okay, it is. But I made like a million bad things before I ever made anything that anybody said, hey, that doesn't suck. So just keep that in mind. And, oh wait, I have to do this again. Where's my mouse? This is so bad. I can't see my mouse. There it goes. Okay. So, anyway, one time, if you get stuck, don't be afraid to ask the CTO, because I got stuck once, and I couldn't write to internal storage on the Oculus Quest, and so I added John Carmack on Twitter and said, hey, how do you do it? And he actually answered and told me exactly what to do. So by all means, just, if you get stuck, just at John Carmack on Twitter. He'll help you. Okay, and that's it. Thank you very much. If anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them, but I don't know.
So like Oculus, there's like an Oculus SDK? So
yeah.
Where does the Oculus, what's the Oculus SDK in comparison to the...
I don't know, I've never touched it.
Okay.
It's something you can do, and you can build your own application for, like, without some third-party software. Okay. If you really want to do that, you can do that and go build software for that, for the device, but I've never done that.
Right. You're talking about the native Oculus SDK.
Yeah.
They pulled it back.
Oh, they did? Okay. He used to work at Meta.
Okay.
Yeah. He's, when all those people got fired, he was one of them.
Thank you for bringing up that painful memory.
It was like 2 weeks ago or something. Yeah. Anyway, anybody else? Yeah, what's up?
So I've got a lot of experience with C#. Every time I've tried to get into Unity, all the tutorials are trying to minimize your exposure to code, because they're trying to be easy for people who don't have that.
Yeah, it's terrible.
Do you have any resources you recommend that are more comfortable giving you the programming stuff early on?
Man, I called it the infinite monkey method because I just bang my head on it and keep typing until it worked. But the API guide or the documentation online is pretty good. So you just start there. But yeah, they have, especially with the scriptable game objects or scriptable objects or whatever, it's like they've moved a lot of the logic into the UI. Like if you want to make do stuff, you like click and drag in the UI a lot now with that stuff, and it drives me crazy too. It's like, I feel your pain. What's up?
Just to comment on that, not to push their product or anything, I don't work for you, but the certification stuff, some of the things that they have on there, then yes, you would pay for it, but by trying to get people to learn how to do it, or kind of to start from beginner to advanced, if you're a high-level programmer, then you are going to pick it up a lot faster, but that's probably the best thing but
Yeah. Anybody else? What's up?
You said that some things are based on the content that you're doing, much more difficult in Unity or Unreal. What would be something that would be easier to use in Unity versus Unreal?
Well, I can give you, the first thing that comes to mind is the third-party library support. I had an idea for using this software package called OpenCV and XR app. I felt like I wanted to give the user the ability to write something, like have you seen a Half-Life Alyx where they write stuff on the board or whatever? I thought it might be useful for the application to be able to know what you were writing. So if you wrote stuff, it would analyze the thing that you wrote and like figure out what the text was. And I was going to use OpenCV to do that, and I got as far as getting the DLL into Unity. And then I was like, oh, I have a job, I have to go do other things now. That in particular was difficult because I could drag OpenCV world.dll into the plugins folder, and it would load, but I couldn't just call the functions inside that DLL from C#. I had to write a C++ like kind of plugin, something to go on top of that, so that my C# could talk to it, and that's kind of a pain. That's not even kind of, that is a huge pain in the ass. Whereas with Unreal, I just have to add OpenCV world.dll to the what is it, build.css or something, or build.cs, one of the CS files that controls the build process in Unreal. You just add it, and then you can call it, and that's it. That's all you have to do. So that would be a lot harder in Unity. I could say the most excruciating thing in Unity that I've had to deal with lately was collaborating on a single scene. And so all of us we all had like our own little fiefdoms, but that were contained within prefabs. And so we would modify our prefabs and then not modify the scene, but still I just wanted to kill myself. That sucked. So, yeah. What's up?
What are you excited for?
What am I excited for? I want to get a Quest Pro eventually. I'm excited for, I don't know, it's hard to be excited right now. It honestly is. Like, I was really excited about Quest Pro, but Facebook Meta isn't doing that well now. So I'm wondering, and I'm wondering what the future of that will be. Microsoft just fired the guy who was in charge of HoloLens, but I don't know if you guys know why he got fired. They had a pretty good reason. I invite you to go Google that. So that's pretty tough. I'm excited to see what Omniverse does, but it's something I didn't mention in the presentation is that Omniverse requires an RTX card. You have to have one just to run it. So I don't know if I can be particularly excited about that either. What is something that I don't know, man. I don't want to sound like a Debbie Downer. I'm excited about the price of GPUs falling. That's awesome. That's great. I'm going to get a 4090 one of these days or something. I don't know. Yeah. What's up?
Where are you at with your experience in mobile versus like PCVR stuff, especially given that NVIDIA platform that we're talking about?
I think the mobile devices are fine. Every application or game that I've played on the mobile devices has been awesome. You'll get more visual acuity, visual definition and stuff out of like a tethered experience, obviously, but I don't think it's worth the tether. The tether's a pain in the butt. It's like a ball and chain, and I don't think that added visual acuity really, it's not worth it. You know, it can be. You can show things. It's good for demonstration purposes. That's just me talking, but there might be a few types of games that can't run on the standalone devices. An example, one of my favorite VR games is Rec Room, and they have a sort of battle royale type thing in Rec Room that you can do. And I don't think I've ever done that on the standalone devices, and I'm pretty sure it won't run on the standalone devices just because it's too visually complex. You have a lot of, it's a big wide open space, you know, and that's hard to do efficiently. So that sort of thing, I guess, would be difficult on there's only like a small percentage in my experience of the games and applications I've used that wouldn't run on the standalone devices, but the majority would, and even if you pared them down, and I think it's worth it to do that personally. That's just me. Well, I think he was first, and then you, I think.
Just want to ask for other devices, have you ever tried the polling method?
The what?
The polling method?
I've seen it. I haven't tried it.
It is surprising.
You're talking from like the ceiling?
Like you
Yeah.
get a cord extender and it's extremely helpful, and it removes a lot of like from we have to like have everything like codified into safety stuff, which I mean whatever. But that it's made a very it helps the UX quite a bit.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. It's like some small thing in UX, and it just destroys your whole application just because you have this thing hanging off your head. You know?
If you haven't tried it, I would suggest it, especially if you wanted to do something like that for everyone. But
yeah, I kind of feel like, you know, that's for the normies, you know, whereas I'm just like, yeah, just give it to me, you know what I mean? Like I'm like Richie's Plank experience, you know that game? I have no problem with that. I just jump right off. No, and that was like the first time I played it. I was like, okay, let's go, you know. So yeah, whatever. It's not for me. Maybe for my kids.
I can agree with tethers. Like it's going to go away. Like, I just think there's not going to be tethers at some point. But my question was,
maybe.
So when you are developing and you said, you have one headset, right? And then, you know, but there's like a dozen headsets people can actually use. So like how reliably, is it like going from like browser back in the day, or is it like,
A little bit.
The app is going to be like pretty consistent across the hardware?
There's a bunch of different realms there. Like the virtual reality realm, there's a bunch of different standalone. Well, there's a few different standalone VR devices, and some of them have different software capabilities. Some of them have different hardware capabilities. I was talking about application space warp, right? That's an Oculus only thing. So if you build your game and it's visually complex and it runs at some rate or whatever, and it kind of slows down and chugs in a few places on your Oculus Quest 2, when you go and put that on another device, it might just straight up die, you know? So that's really hard. The only way you can really do it is deploy to the device and see what works, and then you're constrained by whatever the weakest link is. So whatever the slowest device is, that's as fast as your game can run on any device if you choose to do that. Unless you modify the game, you know, you can pare it down and to run on some other slower piece of hardware. Sometimes that works. It really depends on how much you want to mess with it, you know, what capacity you have to do that. Mixed reality, and sometimes the software stacks won't even transfer. Like, so if you want to do stuff on a mixed reality device, like the HoloLens, right? You have access to the .NET libraries, the C#.NET libraries, and you can do, if you want to send things across a network or something like that, you just leverage those, and they're just like they always have been, and always, you know, everybody knows them. But if you take your application, that's a mixed reality application, you try to put it on Magic Leap, you don't have that access to those libraries anymore because they're not Microsoft. They have their own way of doing things, and it might work, but you're going to be stuck there trying to try to translate that, you know. So it's kind of a pain in the ass. You really have to make firm decisions, kind of, and then like down the road, if somebody's like, hey, we want to support this other device, you can look at it, and if it's possible and feasible, sure, but you really want to make those decisions as early on as possible. Yeah. So, anybody else? Sure.
How do you approach deciding where to display user interface elements inside of those apps?
Dude, people are making their careers off that. You put it in the best place that you put it in the best place that you can think of, and then you go ask other people what they think of that, and then you try to like come up with the best solution you can. I mean, that's all the professionals are doing, and they're just doing it, you know, in ways better than you or I could. They're psychologists, you know, so. Yeah, there's some guidance out there. I'd say research it and go look around on the internet and try and find, you know, make the best educated decision you can about it, but it's going to be trial and error a lot of the time. All the time. It's always going to be trial and error. Yeah.
Are you willing to share these slides somehow, or?
Yeah, I don't care. If you really want them. I don't know how the best way to do that is. I could tweet it. I'll put it up on.
In about 2 weeks, the video will go online. Like the link on the YouTube.
If you follow me on Twitter, my name is Reed Sealfoss, ReedSealFoss. That's my name. That's who I am on Twitter. If you follow me there, I'll tweet it later. I'll upload it and tweet it.
Thanks, that'd be great.
Sure.
You blue check certified, or?
No, man, no. I don't think I even follow Elon, so I might get banned later or something. Oh, I guess everybody follows Elon now, right? Like they did that? No, they didn't do that? Okay. That'd be funny.
I think you don't do that yet.
So there's a lot of different input devices for VR, XR, hands, hand tracking devices, controllers, a lot of legacy equipment. There's new gloves, haptic gloves coming out, I know soon. How do you handle the different variety of input devices when you're doing applications? Do you target single input devices the most common, or are there good libraries out there for abstracting that stuff away?
So in Unity, MRTK3 tries to abstract that away a lot. And so does UXR, and so does the VR expansion plugin for Unreal to a certain degree. But they really try to make it device agnostic. So like if you do a thing with one and you do it with another, it should kind of, the output will be the same. But I mean, there'd be some configuration depending on what you're doing, probably. Personally, my personal opinion is that if I can get rid of the controllers, I will. When I tried VR for the first time in 2012, I showed a picture of it, that Lady Noni de la Peña, and the first thing I tried, like that thing, I don't know if you could see it really well, but you had to wear like this Teletubby thing on your head, and they had these like webcams around you, and they were like watching you. That's how they did it. And the first thing I remember thinking when I put it on was, where are my hands? Like I put my hands on, I was like, where are they? I couldn't see them. And then, 9 not Magic Leap. Leap Motion came out with a device you could put on the front of a like a Vive, and then you could see your hands. And I got one of those. It was only like $60. It was kind of cool. I slapped some cubes around or something like that. It was a lot of fun. You know, like I'm like the guy who really I'm the doctor who's really into kidneys. You know, I'm just trying to move graphics around. I don't really care about the game. And yeah. Anyway, I would say that the most intuitive method of input is always the best, in my experience. And the most intuitive method of input is your hands. The Oculus devices have that. They have the best hand tracking, bar none. Nobody can beat them. I mean, even the mixed reality devices from Microsoft, they will track your hands also, and they do a pretty good job. They do not approach. Oculus is way better at that. But how do you control your game with only your hands? And then you're like, what are you going to throw gang signs or something? I don't know what you do. So I was thinking kind of like, this is me like thinking out loud. Maybe you have one hand and then use a controller in the other or something like that. I don't know. It's really up to you, man. And what do you want to do? And how do you solve that problem? And if you do it really well, maybe you'll be a millionaire or something. I don't know. Yeah. That's my best answer. What's up?
So I guess the second question more from the art perspective. You mentioned the Omniverse and the tool chain are in there that Unity and Unreal are having their own considerations against it. But Blender, Substance Painter...
they all support it. They support USD right now. Yeah, Maya supports USD, Blender does, 3ds Max does. Yeah, all the authoring programs do. It's the end where the content goes. Those applications are like, do we really want to do this? You know, like, I'm in danger, that sort of thing. That's kind of how I feel like they think about it.
What's that Twitter again?
Oh, REEDSEALFOSS.
So what are the issues with like version control? You mentioned like there was just some...
Yeah, so you can set up your Git. I'm going to speak from the position. I've used three version controls. I had to use CVS or CSV or whatever it was back in school. I've never used. Yeah, Git. Okay. Unity has another one, just so you know. It's called Plastic SEM. It's really good, really, really good. But Git, for instance, and it works a lot like Git. Branches and all that sort of thing. The content in your game is typically data heavy, so you have a bunch of textures and levels and stuff like that, sound files and all that stuff. And traditionally, the version control software suites have choked on all that. They don't really handle it very well. You know, they're meant for text files. So Git really traditionally had a hard time with that. There's Git LFS will allow you to handle large files, and then you can put that on your repo or whatever. But here's what happens. Like, let's say somebody alters an image file. How do you track how do you track that? What do you do? Another problem would be like in Unreal, if you use their Blueprints programming system, it's not XML. I think maybe it's set up on the screen as XML, but anyway, if you make changes to a blueprint, it's really hard to track those changes too, you know? So it's the nature of the problem. Plastic SEM in particular was made for games, and it handles that, at least on Unity, really well, in my experience. I used it at Diamond Age Technology when I was working for them. Right now we're just using Git at my current job. Yeah.
So there's not a good Unreal solution really?
Plastic might work for Unreal. I've used the best for Unreal that I can give you is to use a very well-crafted git ignore and not pay any attention to image files or model files or anything like that. But then what do you do with them? I don't know, man. Yeah. So it's really up to you after that. Yeah. Anybody else? Sure.
Do you happen to know any like promising projects that are like ongoing as far as VR MMOs? Anything worth knowing?
MMOs.
Any sort of ideas?
MMOs. No, that's a hard nut to crack, man. Well, if you think if you're talking about like a regular MMO, the only thing that really is tracked by the server from the user is like their position and what direction they're looking in. And if they, do a left click, it will do something, right? So that's not a whole lot of data to track. But with VR and XR, You have position and orientation for left hand, right hand, and head every frame. You know, and that's just an ass load of data, I'm sorry. And like, it's hard to distribute that efficiently between a bunch of users simultaneously. If you go and play like that game I mentioned earlier, Rec Room, and you'll see that it like really slows down like when there's a lot of users. She was just telling me I had 10 minutes remaining. So yeah, so it's hard. I don't know any really good MMOs that are XR, MMO specifically. My favorite game is Rec Room. I keep saying that over and over again. It's a lot of fun. But so when I was working for the Crypto Bros at Pisidium, we were making, it was going to be an MMO, but we didn't get that far. We only had like, I think 8 weeks development time before they ran out of money. But they were paying me pretty well in that time, and then they suddenly couldn't anymore. So, but yeah, I don't know any MMOs. The closest role-playing game that I can think of, the best VR role-playing game that I played is Skyrim VR, but that's because I love Skyrim. I have like 2,000 hours in that game. So.
There is an MMO called Zenith. It's both Oculus and PC VR, and they use Spatial OS for...
okay, for multiplayer hosting? Yeah.
They somehow, I'm not sure what magic sauce they use, but they have 4 PC VR users, full body tracking support, and for Oculus users, not that it's a thing. So I'm not figuring out what the content is for. They released the game like 2 years too early, but it exists.
Okay. Well, the more you know. Yeah. Any other questions? All right. Well, thank you for coming to my MAGFest talk.